you've done enough to defend against cyber attacks, but have you? Did you know that hackers test their software against antivirus solutions? It's no wonder that ransomware is running rampant. Traditional antivirus software is just no match for today's cyber criminals. You may think you've done enough to defend against cyber attacks, but have you? Do you know where you're exposed? Don't get ransomware. It's time to rethink your cybersecurity. Cyber attacks like ransomware are like the plague, with new threats finding their way into organizations daily. You may think your antivirus provides protection, but that's the one thing you have in common with companies that have been hacked, and they paid the price. Remember, you have to be right all the time. Hackers only have to be right once.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And I trust everybody had a restful Ash Wednesday holiday and perhaps took a little time to reflect and be thankful. There are a lot of people out there that are indeed at war, both overseas and indeed even here, arguably here in Jamaica. Hi and morning, my name is David Allen. I'm the Chief Executive here at Info Exchange, and I'm glad to see so many of our current customers and some new faces as well showing up here today. Glad to see also that no one's given up work for Lent. I know I've always wanted to do so, but no such luck. But it is very encouraging to see so many people here, because cybersecurity really is a top of the mind issue for everybody. And today is another in our series of security seminars. And our focus today is going to be on endpoint security, along with our partners, Sentinel One. What I do is just to, start off with some introductions and welcomes. But the things that we're going to really cover today is to do a little recap on ransomware and the current state of play out there in the market. And really we want to be, focusing on, are you doing, enough to keep yourself safe? Is what you're doing actually keeping you safe? And we'll go through some preliminary discussions on that. And then we will then move straight into what everybody is here today to see, which is our the Singularity platform from Sentinel One, and then into a demo, and then on thereafter to a Q&A session for everyone. But one of the things I think I should really start off by doing, some of you know us, but we are new to many of you. So I'll give you a quick intro on who we Info Exchange are. We're 26 years old this year. We were born back in the mid-90s when people couldn't spell the word internet, much less know what it did. The things that cloud could do and how it changed business models were not even a concept back then. And indeed, we've grown and changed over the years. It's been quite a ride, but our focus now is more around modernizing the data center, securely connecting users to workloads, branches to data centers, and then of course, services. And within the services portfolio really is where we focus in on the security side of things. And you will see as we discuss later on why Sentinel One is one of our key partners in delivering security in this day and age. Don't want to really belabor too much on this because we really want to get into the meat of the matter. And what I want to start off with then is a little review, a little catch up of ransomware. Really and truly, ransomware is that basically it's a digital mugging, as I like to call it. but it's that very popular way in which cyber criminals inflict as much pain as they can for the least risk, which is why it's so popular. And one of the things that this slide is trying to show you is that the frequency has been increasing over the years. And more importantly, is the severity. The costs are increasing as well over the years. And you can see where, the damages, we speak to whether it be ransomware, loss of business, insurance, that's topping 20 billion. And it's every 11 seconds that it's now happening. So it's safe to say that you're not immune. But what's very concerning, and we'll speak a little bit about this in a little while, is that thanks to the conflict in the Ukraine, the cyber criminals, some being state-sponsored, are now more intent on just inflicting damage as opposed to in the past trying to get ransom from you. So it's a very concerning time. And I'm not wanting to be an alarmist, but there's some serious things going on out there, and we'll talk a lot about that during our presentation. But nobody wants to come to work in the morning and see one of these things on your screen. And what's important to note is that everybody that has been hacked, I'm not saying some, I'm saying everybody, has had some form of security, endpoint security in place, yet they still got hacked. I'm going to let that sink in a little bit. Something is going on. There's a reason why. And here in Jamaica, we know that the hacks are being underreported. So right off the bat, we're looking at something should be popping up in your mind right now. A question should be popping up in your mind right now. And that is, what's going wrong? You have protection. If you asked anybody in management the day before they got breached, they would say, I had protection. I'm fine, but something has gone wrong. What is it? And one of the things that the answer to that question really is the world has changed. And the traditional and even the next generation approaches to security are being bypassed all the time. So we need to look at why that is happening. We're going to talk about that and what to do about it. The next question that you have to ask yourself is, well, what makes me any different from the last guy that got hacked? And then the next one is, what should I do next? Now, coming out of our presentation today, I hope you'll be able to answer those two questions. Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to take up all the time. So I want to just give some quick housekeeping notes. We are here to answer as many questions as possible. So I'm asking you guys to please ask questions. To do so, at the bottom of your screen, just click the Q&A button and type your question in. We have some really cool guys in the background, Anne-Marie, Brian, Dene, who are in the background, who will be moderating and collecting these questions. We'll get to some of them during the presentation, but most of them will be reserved to the end for our Q&A session. The second thing I wanted to note is that when at the end of the session today, there will be a survey form that will pop up in front of you as you exit. Please fill that survey out, because that way we can then look to see and understand whether you guys can qualify for a trial and a free assessment, security assessment. But you need to fill that survey out so we can see. Moving on, I would like to introduce the rock stars that will be here to make some presentations to you. The first one, of course, is our CIO, our chief architect, my partner and good friend, Mr. Ondell Williams. Ondell, good morning, sir. All right. And next, we have Mr. Marlon Palma, who's the Director of Sales for LATAM and the Caribbean. Hi, Marlon. Good morning. And then we have Mr. Juan Hernandez, the Senior Sales Engineer from SentinelOne, who will be running us through the presentation today. And we'll be all here to do and answer all of these questions I know you're going to enjoy. So with that said and done, everybody, I would like hand it over now to the program director. Brian, over to you.
We thought humans could do it all, but in cybersecurity, humans are not enough. You need tech that's faster, smarter, superhuman. That's why we built SentinelOne, the world's first autonomous cybersecurity platform, powered by machines, not big teams, using AI to stop threats faster than any human could. So we're not just changing the game, we're the new standard. And now it's time for everyone else to catch up.
So good morning, folks. My name is Juan Hernandez. I am the security engineer for Sentinel, and I cover the Caribbean and Latin America. Excuse me, and I'll take the next 50 or so minutes to walk us through sort of a current state of affairs of where endpoint security is at and what we can do to improve it. You know, one of the things that we all can struggle is with change. COVID, looking on the positive side, has sort of forced us to change. And I think it's only going to get even more interesting now that COVID is on the way out. But the big lesson learned there was that the workplace environment needs to be rethunk, if that's even a word. We first started with everybody would have to come into the office. And we built this defensive armament around the office. We had a perimeter firewall, we had a perimeter proxy, everything had to go through that centralized location. And then we had some endpoint security down on the endpoint. But in the world that we live in now, no longer can we afford or can we work in an environment where the user is behind the four corporate walls. We might be as lucky as this gal here who's on a conference call sitting on her laptop on the beach. If you can see my background, I'm on the beach in Hart. I would love to be there, but I can really work just about from anywhere. But that places a certain challenge on the IT security people. How do you secure that person that is sitting on the beach on his or her cell phone? It kind of brings us to the point that we have to rely on where our data is at. Our data is on the workstation. Let's protect the data. And this gets a little bit more complicated when we start to think about this concept that the traditional data center that we've all grown up to build, defend, and strengthen is no longer there anymore. Our data is no longer sitting in a secure data center somewhere. And all of those redundancy plans, high availability plans that we planned for, specifically focusing on backups, we can no longer rely on that. But where we're at now is we are in an environment where our data follows our user, and our data center can be inside of an AWS farm somewhere. It can be in Azure, it can be in Google Cloud, it can be in a bring your own data center. I prefer to run Vultr on my side of the house, but the workplace environment is just about everywhere. So we can't rely on the traditional protection that we've had before to keep our data secure. But unfortunately, the lack of endpoint security evolving to keep up with the pace of modern business has forced us to be in a very, very reactive state. I love this picture here. And it highlights some of the challenges that we as security professionals need to react. You have this boxer here who did a wonderful punch. If he would have connected, I don't know how well Ali would have done here. If he would have connected, it would have been really, really bad. But I love that pivot that he does. Hey, just get out the way. And if you get out the way, then nothing is going to end up happening. This get out the way approach is what the bad guys are actually doing in order to be successful in their attacks. Now, going back over to the evolution of the workplace environment, How the bad guys are attacking us as security professionals have actually changed. Most of that evolution has been driven by what the outcome or what the end result is going to be. We now have to defend ourselves, not just from some Harry Potter looking Rocky dude, but we have to protect ourselves from nation state environments. We're going to see in just a little bit how the first bullet that was fired in the Ukraine was not actually a physical bullet. It was more an e-bullet where a foreign power tried to take down another foreign power by using a bit of malware that evaded almost all security out there. But you have these nation state people that are taking common softwares that live within the operating system, and they use those for other than intended purposes. Now let's think about that let's think that through. Good software being used in ways that nobody ever thought. So how do you defend against that? Some people within the security space would say, well, hey, that's why we have this EDR. But if you sit back and you think about EDR is endpoint detection and response. It's really designed to find something that has happened and do something about something that has happened. Now, to coin a term that Dave over here said, let that sink for a little bit. We need to allow some bad stuff to happen to our system in order to be able to find the bad stuff and then react to it. The bad guys are actually counting on the fact that we have an EDR system in order to buy themselves some time. My most favorite line in this whole slide, besides the Rocky Harry Potter guy here, is, hey, but I got an alert. What does that really mean? It means that, hey, I know that something happened, but wow, man, something happened on the system. What do I now do? Want to show you a quick example of how the bad guys are counting on us having a bit of us having a EDR system. If you want to see this video, it's up on YouTube. Take a look at the SentinelOne webpage. This actually shows a video for this malware called Hermetic Wiper. Hermetic Wiper was the first bullet that was fired in the Ukrainian invasion, and this Eastern European nation used it to attack another Eastern European nation with the intent of taking a whole bunch of systems down. Somewhere, somebody decided to, hey, let's get political. This is all political, in my opinion. And they embedded in the source code this 403 for Biden. You know, I gotta love the bad guys out there. What's a 403 error? It's a authentication, bouncing back whatever Biden is doing. You gotta love how the bad guys are out there. And even this malware decided to evolve just a little bit after it was launched, and it became known as Party Ticket. One bad guy sent out the initial attack. That initial attack accomplished its goals. Somebody saw, wow, man, this just bypassed all security. Let me embed an additional payload into this. I'll show you what this means. This Party Ticket evolution turned this attack that we're going to see in just a little bit into a ransomware attack. And I'll explain a little bit of it just now. Now, this is a video of SentinelOne detecting Hermetic Wiper. And for everybody on this presentation here, SentinelOne detected this attack without any changes to our technology out there. Starting with what we're doing here, highlighting the fact that the policy that we are enforcing within this video here is a detect-only policy. We're not going to do anything. On the desktop, we have a copy of Hermetic Wiper. The intent of Hermetic Wiper is to make the system unbootable. Here we extract the malware, and we can actually see that, hey, we detected something. Keep in mind, we are only detecting, we're not preventing. This malware is now resident on the system, but it has not yet run. Now, within the video, we're starting to run the system, we're starting to run the malware, and all sorts of things are going on within the background, but we have not rebooted the system. Now, from the attacker point of view, if I wanted to plant some type of ransomware, this would be the point in time that I do it, to display some type of message on the system, encrypt all of the files, and hopefully I get something back. I would add a message that says, hey, don't reboot or you lose all your data. If you do reboot, something like this happens. This system is now unbootable. So bad guys are counting on the fact that you won't be able to detect malware. You won't be able to stop it because you're using legacy technology that relies on a system being compromised first. Once that system gets compromised, then you can gather the EDR data and do all sorts of stuff out there. But what happens if during my attack, I decide to make the system unbootable? If I make the system unbootable, then I can't gather data to understand how this ended up happening here. One of the important notes, and I'm going to go back just a little bit here. Most of the technology that is being used here are native Windows files. Talking about using existing files, living off of the land files, and using them for something else that they were not intended to be used for. These bad guys are using standard files that come with system and abusing them in a certain way, and they end up blowing the system up. From a high level 50,000 foot point of view, what they're doing is they're infecting a system, and after they infect the system, they're cleaning up their tracks. They're making it impossible for somebody to come back and actually pull up all of the data points that they used in order to infect the system. If you erase your footprints, you make it impossible to be able to create IOCs, IOAs, TTPs in order to prevent this attack from happening again. Now, the focus of this video is changing just a little bit. The policy has been changed over to protect mode. And notice the shield now on the screen says screen. We've detected something malicious within this file, and we've cleaned it up. We are detecting this file, and we're stopping the attack chain from happening early on. We're not allowing this to go on one step further. This file was actually detected using statistical analysis, not behavior analysis, but statistical analysis. And I'll show you why this is different. And let me actually change focus just a little bit. And we're going to run through a quick exercise. I don't know why Apple Music decides to show up all the time. But on my desktop, we have this file here called archive. It's in Spanish, archivo.exe. And if I open up this file and we take a look at the content of it, it just says good morning in Spanish, nothing else in there. Now, I want to show you something pretty interesting here. I'm going to switch my browsers a tad bit, and I'm going to come over to a system like VirusTotal. What is VirusTotal? VirusTotal is a free service that allows you to send any executable over into this service. And the service tells you whether the standard antivirus systems have seen this file before. I sent this file into the AV engines yesterday, and it said, hey, this is a good file. Nobody's seen it before. Nobody's complained that this is a bad file. The reputation for this file is good. Now, let me show you how easy it is to bypass the endpoint security or signature-centric protection. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to inject to the end of this file a whole bunch of spaces. So I've now injected a bunch of spaces into this file, and if I come back into the file here, the file looks exactly the same. From an execution perspective, this file is still going to execute. All of the empty spaces at the end are simply going to be ignored because right after the period here, there's an end of file that is added into the executable code. So the file will still continue to run. It'll still continue to do its thing. But from the perspective of the AV engines that are out there, this is going to be a totally new file. Notice I haven't clicked on confirm upload, but as soon as I click on the upload, all of the AV engines that subscribe to VirusTotal are now analyzing this file. This is the very first time that they've seen this. This goes back and talks about the reactive nature of the antivirus technology that exists out there nowadays. Somebody needs to be compromised. When somebody is compromised, all of the data that is learned from that specific event is shared throughout the antivirus community, and then protection starts to get developed from that. going back over to the hermetic wiper event, nobody saw that file because nobody saw that file before. Nobody had protection, minus SentinelOne. And the Ukrainian people lost a couple of servers because they were not quite ready for it. And it wasn't more that they were not ready for it, but the antivirus or the anti-X protection that they had was not ready for this file, because nobody has seen this file before. Now, I know this is a whole lot of information to dump on you. If you have any questions, I'd like to interact with people. Please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I'll answer them in real time as needed from there. But just a quick recap here. We took a file that has been previously seen before, and we changed the signature, and we bypassed all of the existing technology that would have detected this file if this file was malicious. Coming back over to our presentation, this starts to showcase the challenge that we've seen with the legacy type of technology. In the past, the only protection that AV vendors had were signatures. Somebody saw a file, create a signature for the file, we're protected from this point forward. But just like we saw now, within the course of a couple of seconds, we took a known file, we changed the signature of that known file, and we bypassed security. Because it was that easy to bypass security, the endpoint security market evolved. And it evolved to, hey, we're not quite looking for the signature for the file, but rather let's take a look at what is inside of the file, and we'll create statistical models to be able to identify this file there. And off of those, and all of those statistical modeling or analysis means that we need this huge infrastructure to be able to detect all of the threats that are out there. So some of the companies that are listed in the center graphic here use a huge data model within a cloud service somewhere to be able to identify threats. And those, there's a lot of background noise. Sorry, just saw the text. Not sure where that background noise is coming from. It's not.
Yeah, is that coming from your end, Juan? There were a lot of background noise. Okay.
Not coming from me now.
Okay.
But the center column here shows how some of the security vendors have tried to adopt their security infrastructure to be able to handle the new modern threats that are out there. And how they handle this is they develop this huge cloud infrastructure to be able to recognize these indicators of compromise and try to get something out quicker and sooner. But unfortunately, that introduces a little bit of latency to detection. You still got the system that's infected. Bad guys are still counting on the fact that you have a cloud-assisted system in order to recognize the threats that are out there. And this is where SentinelOne is a tad bit differently. We're going to talk about the SentinelOne approach in just a second out here. But I want to show you another example of how this latent detection is being abused. And I know one thing is to be able to talk about it, but nothing speaks volumes than having a third party identify this latency and the problems that this latency presents. Back around April of last year, this company called MITRE, and I'll show you the results in just 1 second, published a study where they took this backdoor. This backdoor was used by this threat actor group called Fin7. They first launched this attack back around June of 2017. And MITRE took that attack April of 2021 and sent it to a whole bunch of security vendors out there. Now, using Dave's term again, let this sink in. This attack was first seen in 2017. The test was done in 2021. And the results of the test are actually displayed on the screen. Everything to the left of this black center bar here are detections. If you detect something, you're going to be able to stop it. But I have to ask the question, at what cost? That at what cost can be measured by everything to the left of the black bar. Everything to the left of the black bar means that either human resources or a retest or a cloud delivered system needed to detect these specific events, meaning that everything to the left of the bar is either a blatant miss or a latent detection here. SentinelOne is very fortunate that all of our detections happened on the device, on the endpoint. These detections were done in real time, meaning that we see it, we stop it, we prevent it, and we remediate it from there. Taking the next closest vendor here, Checkpoint. Checkpoint's a pretty interesting use case. Checkpoint used their firewalls and they used their endpoint agent to detect this. But the challenge that Checkpoint here had was that 57 of the 157 alerts were a do-over detection. Well, what does this mean? This means that the test was ran, they didn't like the results, and they said, wait a minute, hold on, let's rerun this test again. They learned from the first time that the test ran, they adjusted their configuration to detect those things that they missed. And when they reran the test again, they detected 57 additional more. But unfortunately, they missed 12 events. And then they had this number one here is a detection delay. One of their cloud services said, hey, we see something bad there. You should go do something about it. Everything to the left of this black center bar is where you as security professionals come in. Your AV vendor will not detect it in real time. This means that something is going to happen on that device. You have to clean it up. Eventually, your security professional will come back and tell you, hey, something bad happened. You may want to go do something about it. Now, in the spirit of full transparency, let me show you the webpage where these results were actually pulled from. And I'd like to open this up for, for just a couple of people. This is the webpage where these results were pulled from. These are the participants that participated in this test here. Poking SentinelOne in the eye, looking at our results, we detected 174 of 174 of the different steps that the attacker took, meaning we had 100% visibility and 100% ability to stop the attack there. But at what cost? What does a customer have to have in order to be able to recognize this type of attack here? So clicking on the Carbon Act Fin 7, SentinelOne, all that we used here was the cloud management platform. This is where we manage policies and we do what we end up doing. And the Linux endpoint agent, this provides protection for Linux-based systems, and the Windows endpoint agent. Pausing here for a second, is there anybody curious what a specific vendor used and how they performed within this test? I'll just pause here for a quick second. Or Dave, or anybody on the Info Exchange team.
Maybe Bitdefender. How do they do?
The ones that are more popular out here would be Semantic, McAfee.
Okay.
There's a bit of Carbon Block. And,
So let's take all of those. We'll take all of those there. So in this study, keep in mind this malware first came out in 2017, midway through 2017. Bitdefender detected 158 steps of 174. What did they lose with the remaining, I don't know, I can't do the math right now, 20 some odd different steps there? Probably data exfiltration is one of the things that were there. So they were not 100% covered there. From the tools perspective, what they ended up using was Bitdefender Gravity Zone Ultra, probably their highest end product out there. They used that technology there. I remember I heard Fortinet. Let's take a look at Fortinet.
Yeah, and Symantec as well.
All right, so Fortinet, God bless those guys. They detected 117 of 162. This is not at 174 because they don't have Linux coverage. So they detected probably 3/4 of all of the different steps, different opportunities that the bad guy had to infect the system. And where this gets really interesting is they actually used the complete Forta client with the predict, protect, and respond agent. And they used the Forta EDR license, which includes the Fortinet firewall. So you need to have the complete Fortinet firewall plus the complete Forta client licenses in order to protect from the attack. And all that got you was 117 of 162 detection points. And then taking a look at Symantec. So Symantec, in this case, 159 of 174 detections. And what they need, what a customer needs to have in order to get this level of protection, they need to have the Symantec EDR component, the Symantec Endpoint client version 14.3 or newer, and the Symantec Threat Defense Active Directory module. I really love this stack approach that some of the competitors take. It's really great for increasing the amount of revenue that they make for customers. But in reality, all of these additional layers, all they end up doing is they start slowing down the endpoint performance. And I remember I heard McAfee in here. I won't spend too much more time than this.
Yeah.
But looking at what McAfee did here, McAfee 151 of 174. And McAfee used, EPO, their EDR module, their ENS, with mVision, which is their EDR system. They used ATP or ATD, NSP, and ESM. Again, additional license modules that are being consumed in order to provide additional protection. And I see a question in the panel. Kevin wants to know.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah.
What Carbon Black did. Let me take a quick step back here. Carbon Black, I think they don't know who they want to be when they grow up, but let's see how they did. Carbon Black detected 154 of 174 substeps. Whoops, coming back a little bit too far. And let's see what they actually used within their test kit. They used the next gen AV. They used the behavioral EDR, the audit and remediation module, and they used the enterprise EDR with the Windows sensor and the Linux sensor there. So they try to cover all of their bases there. Now,
and then the last one would be Microsoft.
Well, so there's two more. I think somebody asked about Trend Micro, and then I'll highlight Microsoft in 1 second here. Trend Micro is at the bottom, 167 of 174. They did actually pretty good. I'm surprised looking at what they used in order to get this level of protection. They used the Trend Micro Vision 1, Apex 1, the workload security, Deep Inspector, Windows Apex 1 security as a service, the Windows Cloud Agent, the Linux Cloud Agent. From an endpoint security vendor, wow, that's a lot of licenses you're buying. From an endpoint manageability side, wow, that's a lot of modules you're loading, and resources start to go down on that device over there. And last company to highlight here would be Microsoft. Let's take a quick look. Microsoft, 151 of 174. And to get these results, well, you needed just about every single Microsoft license enabled or purchased in order to get these results. Higher security budget doesn't necessarily mean better protection out there. I think that would be the quick takeaway. The reason for this is most of these vendors are still relying on a legacy approach in order to be able to protect you and your data out there. Now, I'm going to continue.
Yeah, with, just to reiterate, Juan, that the MITRE attack, it's a third party organization that does this. This is not a Sentinel One thing. Yeah,
that is exactly correct.
Yep. Right. And just wanted to reiterate that.
Awesome, man. And then showing somebody else do this is always good. third-party validation and verification is probably the better thing to do. But nothing speaks to this ability than showing you what this actually looks like in real time. The next couple of minutes that we're going to spend here, we're going to recreate a very similar attack to what we saw within Carbonac. This is something that is homegrown. We run this within our demos, but it operates the same sort of way here. This test is running off of 2 different VMs. This VM that is now starting here, this is a Windows 10 system. Over here, this is a Kali Linux system. Both of these systems are going to participate in a programmed attack. As the attacker point of view, everything that is on the left-hand side over here, let me get this ready for us. From the attacker point of view, all I got to do is give myself root level access, and I'll start the attack framework. Come on, there it is, right there. What's going on this system over here is I'm creating a brand new attack, something that nobody ever has seen before. So it's going to evade all of the security checks that most legacy antivirus technologies are going to run. And on this side, I am going to log in. And you're going to notice once we get into this workstation on the desktop, there's 3 very important things. There's a folder, which we can see on the left-hand side over here. This folder contains the very, very sensitive documents that can by no means leave the organization. And then we also have a installer. This is a standard MSI file that is ready to be run. And then we have a Word document that's here. And by the way, something really important just happened. I selected the file, and in the antivirus market, when you select a file, that file gets checked against the antivirus technology that is on that device. SentinelOne is running on this device. This check happens again when you start to run the file. And after you start to run the file, if you don't detect anything on that file, then you're pretty much SOL. You have to rely on reactive detection in order to be able to stop the threat that's there. Now, before we proceed, I want to go back over to the SentinelOne Management Console and show you how the policy is set up inside of it. So this is the SentinelOne Management Console, and I'm going to change focus here over to the actual site where we're going to be doing our test. And looking at the policy that we are applying here, we are applying a detection-only policy. What does this mean? This means that whatever happens on this device, we're not going to do anything to stop it. Coming over to the incidents page here, looking at our recent threats, we haven't detected anything within the last couple of hours. This means that anything that shows up in this console is happening right now. Now, that being said, our attack infrastructure is ready for data connections to happen there. And our workstation, we've selected the file. No alerts have been detected. Even worse, I open up the file. No alerts have been reported on the system. And this user has no idea that they've just now lost control of this device. And from a IT security perspective, the IT practitioner has no idea that anything has happened on this device. And then just to show you this, no alerts within the SentinelOne console. But if I come back to the end user point of view here, as soon as I close this file, a sequence of unstoppable events have now just launched. That payload that was within this system has been weaponized, and all sorts of really cool things are going on that device. If I open up this file here, we can actually see the SentinelOne agent recording all of the different behaviors that are going on that device and saying, hey, we should do something about this. The SentinelOne agent said, hey, I just noticed an exploitation cycle happening on this system. What do I do? The policy is set to detect, so we don't do anything. After the exploitation cycle was run, the bad guy decided to run a little bit of evasion on there. They established persistence. And once they established persistence, then they ran some ransomware. Now, this is what we can tell is going on now. It looks like, and we think that on that device, ransomware has ran. Notice this brand new rule that showed up here. This rule is telling us that we've lost data on this system here. So in the time it took us to respond to this event or recognize that something has happened, we have lost all of our data on this system, and that data that was on that system has been exfiltrated. Now, I want to stop here for 1 second and do a quick poll, and it's going to be a multi-part poll here. Have any of you personally been affected, or do you know anybody that has been hit by ransomware? And the second part of this question is, if you do, how would you recover from a ransomware attack like this? I'll take a quick look at the chat just to see what is going on, if there's any questions.
Yep.
So while we are getting answers that come back in here, the honest answer to this is, if something like this happens, it's probably too late. Data has been exfiltrated and we've lost the data that's on there. So what do? Most organizations will say, as soon as we know that something has happened, let's isolate the device. You isolate the device, you contain the attack, and this malware does not spread from machine to machine. That's the worst case that can be out there. You have one threat that's moved from one system to another system, and this ransomware attack has gotten exponentially larger. One person in Q&A, and the anonymous attendee, restart from backup, that's honestly all you can do. Something has happened, isolate the device, let's get the tapes back on there, and let's get the data over there. But at what cost? Having this system infected allows the bad guy to exfiltrate data, and it also keeps the organization down. How long can your organization afford to hold their breath while you recover this system from there? Now, interesting sort of thing here. What SentinelOne does and what makes us different is because we do analyze behaviors and we do detect events on the system. And I promise I only have a couple more minutes to go here. We're able to identify this attack in flight. Every red circle that is listed here, these are events that the endpoint agent has discovered and determined that, hey, this is a bad event. I need to do something about this. We noticed that when something really bad happened with Windward, we have a red circle, and the endpoint agent said, hey, do I stop this or not? It compares what the policy is supposed to do. Because we did not stop it here, this allowed this malicious PowerShell script to run. This malicious PowerShell script then created a scheduled task to reinfect this system daily at 9 a.m. They also deleted the security log that's there. They deleted shadow copies. They hid a file using a trib. And then this GPO update.exe actually started to do the encryption of the device. This GPO update.exe file will not run unless you call it in a very specific format. You have to call it using these command line switches, otherwise it would not run. Now, what we're seeing here is this thing that we call storyline. The agent analyzes events in real time, and it presents this information over to you so that after the attack runs, you're able to say, yes, I agree with what you did here. To get to this point in time that we're here, most EDR technologies would require human involvement, a lot of data gathering, and a whole bunch of time to try to piece this data together. In the time that we're trying to figure out what ended up happening, the bad guy was able to exfiltrate data. Data went to these different locations here. This is what the bad guys are counting on. The bad guys are counting on the fact that you have a reactive technology where you're going to invest the time into EDR. And while you're trying to figure out what ended up happening, your data just went out the back door. Now, all of this is really, really, really cool. We can make this look even better if we click on this actions button here, and I'm going to send a mitigation action. If we're successful at mitigating this threat, we're going to close this case. Time to go home. We are good to go. I just sent this over to the system here. Move. And what we're waiting for is for the workstation to execute the remediation action here. So the management console has confirmed that it's killed 13 processes that were involved in this attack. These were running connections going back to the bad guy. Pretty interesting to note that, hey, there's 12 network connections that were open. The bad guy was still connected. The first process that was killed was the actual PowerShell script that was still running in the background. The remaining 12 processes were these connections that were continuing to exfiltrate data from the workstation out there. The management console or the agent removed the file that was here, put it into quarantine. We remediated or undid 792 changes to the operating system that happened. These are artifact files, registry key entries, tasks, and stuff like that. And we recovered 1,118 files that were encrypted during this ransomware attack. It's important to note that if our policy was in prevent mode, none of this data past windward, or none of these events past windward.exe would have happened, meaning that the encryption that happened on the device would not have happened, and the data loss that happened on the device would not have happened. Secondary point to make here, of all of the executables or processes that were used in this attack, the only foreign process that was used was this GPL update.exe. Bad guys will not inject a foreign file into a system until they are assured that they're not going to be detected. This bad guy here was pretty secure, knowing that they're not going to be detected. Once they know that they're not going to be detected, then they proceed with the attack. Just to highlight this here, I'm going to come back over one step from here, and I'm going to take the signature of this file here, and I'm going to send it over to VirusTotal. And VirusTotal says, hey, what file? This file does not exist. This file is guaranteed to bypass all of the security that you might have within your endpoint protection. And then here, just want to pause for questions before I turn it over to my coworker, Marlon Palma here. Any additional questions, anything else that I can answer?
Could you show us CrowdStrike in terms of their performance with the last MITRE attack eval?
All right, I like CrowdStrike. Those guys are amazing. They have a sensor-centric approach to where they do absolutely nothing on the endpoint and they send everything to the cloud. So if I was a bad guy, I would terminate the cloud connection. And if I can't send data to the cloud, then there's nothing to report off of. But CrowdStrike, they used in this test, they used the Windows agent, the Falcon agent, and they used every single product that they own. Take whatever you're paying now, multiply it by 20, and that times 20 protection gives you 152 of 174 detection steps. And Janelle has a question, and one more before we get off of this here. Next question was Kaspersky. Kaspersky used, wow. They used all of their budget in this test, and their complete weapon arsenal gave them, oh, actually, you know what, I take it back, they didn't participate. I owe them an apology. Probably, and I can only guess that they didn't participate because the previous step, they didn't do too well. There was one more question here. Oh, the question was—
yeah, so Janelle asked, how are you able to do the rollback in the mitigation process?
That is an excellent question. How does the magic happen? The magic happens based off of this wonderful storyline that's here. Whenever a behavior starts on the system or a process starts on the system, we tag that inception point with what we call a storyline. Marlon is going to talk about this in just a little bit. But we start to develop this storyline over time. Next step happens, PowerShell.exe, it receives the same storyline. But every single time a threat evolves, we ask, hey, when word.exe just ran, here's what happened. Is this a bad event? Yes or no? If it's a bad event, we stop it there. If it's not a bad event, then we record every single step along the way, and we record all of the changes that have happened. You can actually see all of that recording event happen down at the bottom. So here we see a file modification normal.m has ran. We preserve the deltas of what happened to this file in a protected shadow copy repository. And when we execute a remediation action, we pull out the delta and we restore the file back to the original state. The only reason why this is successful is because of this patented storyline technology, where we track behaviors over time and we're able to restore the files the way that they were beforehand. And somebody in the back of his or her mind is saying, well, hey, doesn't ransomware delete shadow copies? The answer is yes. The bad guy in this attack decided to delete shadow copies twice. Here they did it using standard user credentials. Whatever the user had access to, this would be effective in about 80% of the attacks that are out there. And then they did it here using elevated credentials via WMI, where they deleted shadow copies here. So bad guys planned for this sort of stuff. We use shadow copies to store snapshots of files. We tie them all back together with our patented storyline protection. What this means to you as a SentinelOne Info Exchange customer is anytime an event happens, as soon as it is detected, we're able to have the agent automatically respond to it and mitigate the threat. And you know, I feel like what was that guy, man? I think a luggage fell on his head and he passed away. You know, but wait, there's more. If we look back at the legacy EDR type of technology, we can take any event that has happened. I'll just choose any event in here. And we can take any event that has historically happened, and we can flag it as a malicious event. I just chose this one. And if we flag this as a malicious event, this event creates an incident within the incident table, and we start to treat it as a malicious event, which means that all of the changes that happened within this storyline here automatically get undone from there. Hopefully I answered your questions there. And I think I'm out of time. I apologize for going over. Any last minute questions I can answer?
Well, I would just add one. I know it was mentioned, but if you could just sort of highlight it for me about whether the endpoint needs to be connected to the internet to have the type of protection you're talking about.
So thank you so much for mentioning that. We are an agent-based solution. And what agent-based solution means is that all of the detection logic and all of the response logic is native to the endpoint agent. This means that my workstation that I have here, if my policy was in protect mode, even if I'm not connected to the internet, the agent would have responded the same way as if it was connected to the internet. So going back over to the beginning of our discussion here, regardless of where your user is at, connected or not connected, you can expect to see the same response or have the agent respond the same way. So connection is not required.
Yeah, good. I would just add another thing. I mean, I noticed in those the MITRE reports that a number of the other vendors had a large stack of technologies. SentinelOne seems to be just one agent. Is everything squeezed up into that one agent, and what does it do to the performance of the endpoint?
That is an excellent question. We are one agent, and performance-wise, we'll consume about 200 megs worth of RAM on the system. We have to do our analysis somewhere. CPU under attack, you should expect about 15% CPU to be consumed. And then disk space wise, we store all of the shadow copies in about 2 gigs worth of disk space. Now, if I have a couple of minutes, I want to highlight a couple of additional things out here. We do all sorts of detection on the endpoint. And all of that intelligence that we have on the endpoint, we're more than happy to share with additional systems that you might be using within your enterprise. And where this Singularity Marketplace is at, this is a great example of how we can share information with other systems out there. Just imagine this. This attack that we saw on the system, we detected something bad has happened. As soon as we detect something bad, we send a notification over to Zscaler, just as an example, and we say, hey, user 1 has been infected. I want you to kick them off of the network. Or if you're running Azure Active Directory, we tell Active Directory, hey, disable this account. This user has been compromised. That disconnected status stays up until the workstation automatically cleans itself up. The event cleans itself up, then the Active Directory account is re-enabled, and the user is then re-allowed to reconnect to the that account, or that system is allowed to reconnect to the network. We have a really full ecosystem where we share data. If you want some more information on our integrations in the Q&A, I can spend some more time answering that. Now, if there's no other questions, I'd like to turn this over to my coworker, Marlon Palma. He's going to finish up a little bit. Huh?
Anne-Marie, we can ask those questions in the Q&A segment.
Yeah. Mark and Orion, we'll get to your questions momentarily. We will get to them in the Q&A section. Thanks for your questions. And please, everybody, keep throwing questions at us. We will get to all of them. Back to you, Juan.
So, hey, for me, this is what I have for now. I'll turn this over to my coworker, Marlon Palma.
Hello, everyone, again. Thank you so much, Juan. That was a great information, and for sure, we appreciate it. Let me share my screen one on here. Please let me know if you're seeing my screen.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So let's summarize and capitalize this knowledge that Juan has shared with us. So the SentinelOne Singularity platform is a software as a service-based solution. We support all modern Windows versions, Mac, Linux distributions, Docker, and Kubernetes, cloud-native workloads. So, and also legacy versions of Windows are supported. This is great because we know legacy products are supported by other makers, but they don't do what we just saw. So we even covered some legacy versions. This is the platform we offer for you. So let's see what it offers. So first of all, we start with the prevention and control capabilities. So these are the core control functions foundational to all agent types in SentinelOne, and enable the replacement of legacy antivirus and next generation antivirus. So agents are, as Juan got this question right, autonomous, meaning they protect equally well online or offline, and are equipped to analyze and respond to malicious files and files attack. We talk about storyline, that's what we use with static and behavioral artificial intelligence models. So it does not rely on cloud connectivity to make a detection, which is great, right? We were used to load signatures that affects and impacts the resources and the performance of the endpoint. Not in this case. This is completely autonomous. And well, we also have local controls like a firewall, USB, Bluetooth, the row discovery, reconnaissance, and other critical instrumentation. These are part of these control capabilities. This is great because, and we may think we may have this in other products, but we do it in a different way, as you have seen, not impacting the resources of the endpoint. Now, we have the detection and response, the EDR functions for security analysts and threat hunters. So we saw the MITRE results where we detected 100% of the steps the attacker took, 100% visibility, and no delays. That's an industry differentiator. This approach means productivity and long view threat visibility. So we integrate the platform with MITRE and enable a custom defined storyline active response or star queries. So our EDR is tightly integrated with prevention and control response capabilities. So we also have this is great, the remediation and recovery. Usually IT teams, they have to use a lot of effort, time, money, people, resources, to do this step between the previous and remediation and recovery. So these features automate the removal of unauthorized changes to get users and workloads working again, while at the same time make it easier on the security team. So this takes off this heavy load of work for the IT team, right? And we also offer network visibility and attack surface control. So this is great because it's engineered directly into the agent as an option. Okay, you just simply turn it on, and agents are elected to use passive or active scanning technology to understand what devices are on the network, which ones are managed, which ones don't yet have an agent, and which agents potentially put your assets at risk. All right. So suspicious devices can be network isolated from managed assets. SentinelOne network visibility and attack surface control requires no new agents, no new hardware, and no network changes. As we mentioned, it's embedded in the agent, so you just turn it on. So, and let's take at this a moment to understand this XDR automation. Sometimes we hear the terms EDR, XDR, etc. Right? So XDR means extended detection and response. So this includes functions to extend response to other vendor platforms, as well as consume and action data from those platforms into SentinelOne. So we have something called a Singularity Marketplace. There's a lot of information we can share with you. One session is not enough, but we are open to have one-on-one sessions with you if you're interested. Just ask our team, Info Exchange, and we will schedule this for you. So this Singularity Marketplace use some marquee integrations from companies like Netscope, Recorded, Futures, Splunk, IBM, etc. So we have built out more integration service capabilities with other popular security stack vendors to provide these XDR capabilities from SentinelOne available to you. So this is pretty much a lot of differentiators from other products versus SentinelOne, and we offer everything with one single agent and one single console. So this is great news for you, besides what we have seen from SentinelOne. And I would like to, now I know we're running with time, I would like to hand it over to my friend Andel, please, if you want to take over. Thank you so much for your attention. If there are questions, we will be more than happy to answer them from the Q&A chat.
Thank you very much, Marlon.
And I think, folks, there is a quick poll question here. Given
Yes.
everything that we've seen before, just like to ask the group, are you 100% comfortable with the current level of protection that you have out there? But hey, Andel, I won't steal your thunder. I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One of the things that we have seen today is that it is very important to have sufficient coverage for your overall security. And when we talk about overall security, we're talking about how do you fight against that which is trying to ransomware your data, destroy your data, exfiltrate your data, or just plainly disrupt your business, cause downtime, or to cause some other ill towards your business. How do you deal with that? And usually it is best to actually do the fight away from your actual assets, digital assets. But sometimes it's not possible. So security is about layers of defense. So for most companies, you would have email security solution. And of course, you would have a solution that defends you against anything on the general web. And that is very important, because if you can fight things away from your treasured jewels, then you're much better than trying to fight it when they're on your territory, within your country, if you want to say that. So having very good email security and having very good web security or web browsing security is important. But what if all else fails? What are you left with? Defending your digital assets and having that defense so that you have complete visibility. Because as we saw with the MITRE ATT&CK evaluation results, whenever you don't have complete visibility, that means that at some point you will be compromised. Or you're going to have to hunt for that threat. And by the time you hunt for that threat, you're already compromised, because they're moving at internet speed. For most analysts, you'll have to dig through quite a bit of information just to find it. So whether you're offline or you're online, you want a solution that provides you with complete endpoint protection. And when we speak about endpoint detection and response, you want that to be active, because if it's not active and it's passive, then what happens in the detection and response is that, yes, I detect it, but a human will have to respond. That isn't good enough. For what is happening today, that just isn't good enough.
Precisely.
So let us get into. Yes, go ahead, David.
I was going to say that, remember, attacks are coming now every 11 seconds.
Yes.
And it's increased of recent days. So there's no time for a human response. Right.
And not only that, David, but when you look at the disruption where one machine within a company gets compromised, it actually disrupts a business for an extended period, because as an administrator, you're now trying to figure out, is it just that single machine, or it's more than that single machine? And therefore, you now have to almost everything that machine connects to, has connectivity to, which most machines within our corporate environment has access to most things. You're going to have to know to say, here, we have to pause business. We're going to have to wipe machines and all of that. So it's very disruptive. And that kind of disruptive is actually very bad for your business in terms of downtime and costs.
And based on the poll results, about 88% of the respondents are not 100% satisfied, with what they have, and rightly so, based on some of the things that we've been saying and some of the things that are in fact happening out there now.
Right. So here's one of the first questions that we will ask. What happens if you are already compromised and you install Sentinel-One? So this one is for Juan. What happens? I have some other product and I install Sentinel-One onto that machine. what happens? Can I detect what has gone before? Am I able to recover what has gone before? Or will I now be protected going forward? What happens?
So that's a very interesting question. In order for SentinelOne to be able to clean up a mess, we have to be able to see that threat unfolding. If we don't see how the threat unfolded, all we can do is prevent additional systems from getting compromised. But you can use the EDR technology to be able to recognize that threat evolving and what it's using. We'll go back and we'll be able to scrub, look for IOCs, IOAs, and help gather with data.
That's great, because that means that even when SentinelOne is installed post-event, you can still provide visibility.
That is correct. We can prevent from additional payloads to be dropped down onto that system, and we can be used to look at, we can be used for data gathering.
Right. And one of the important things, one that you showed, was that with just adding spaces to the end of a particular malware, you actually create a new one. And for most systems, that new malware, which is just what you want to call it, a .1.1 change, will not be detected by most systems. What is it that SentinelOne is doing to ensure that, you know, it is able to detect what is going on? Is it because of your behavioral AVI or AI, sorry, or because of some other technology? What is it that you're doing differently that exposes what the threat actor is doing?
So that is an excellent question. Everybody has to evolve from the way that we used to do things before. And the way that we used to do things before is to take a known bad and learn from the known bad. But nowadays, the known bad can be just about anything. So rather than focusing on this file is bad, let's focus on what this file is doing. It doesn't matter what this file is, take a look at what the file does. And in real time, respond to any malicious actions that come from that. There's only so many, there's a limited amount of ways that you can get a system into an exploited state, or you can start to cause harm to a system. Look for the harm, and when you see the harm reaction, do something about it. We use behavioral AI to be able to respond to that.
All right. Here's a question, another question as well. Sometimes, you know, as technical people, we kind of get confused with, you know, the whole marketing around SIEM. So, you know, security, information, and events management. And, you know, we try and collect everything. And then we try and figure out, okay, after we have collected all of this data, what do we do with it? So what is different in terms of visibility when it comes to a SIEM and SentinelOne? And what are the differences between the two?
Right.
So a SIEM, or a security event information management system, is this huge database that gathers data events from different security architectures or different security systems within the corporate enterprise. But what is that really doing for us? What it ends up doing is it starts to create a whole bunch of alerts that somebody has to go chase down. And you know, we're guilty of this too. We can ship data to the SIEM, and the SIEM is going to now give us a whole bunch of data there, but somebody still has to go over to the SIEM and say, hey, this event is bad. Let's go do something about it. While we can help you feed data into the SIEM, our approach is, rather than tell you something bad is going on, the SentinelOne agent says, hey, I just saw this bad, report that to the SIEM. Follow-up action after that will be, hey, this bad thing that we just reported to you, we took care of it. So open the ticket, close the ticket, and you need to have that audit cycle stored within the SIEM, so that that single pane of glass that your organization uses within the SIEM, you can use it to track cases and incidents within your environment. We are not a SIEM, but we do participate in the SIEM. But you know, this is an interesting question. SIEMs usually rely on some type of data storage in order to gather all of this data. how long do you store your data for? Some organizations will have a year mandate to store their data, but in reality, that starts to get expensive, especially if you use something like Splunk. So rather than having to have an ever-increasing Splunk budget out there, they end up breaking data into high fidelity, high impact events. And then they have the low fidelity potential impact events. Those low fidelity potential value events are not stored within the SIM, meaning that, there's a picture of this iceberg, right? Where you see less than 10% of the tip of the iceberg above the water, and you have this whole massive animal beneath the water there. Most SIMs will only highlight the small tip of the iceberg, and they miss all of the data that is that can potentially be used. That's where the bad guys are laying low. And if we had more time, we can start talking about data set and what SentinelOne can do to help solve that data problem as well.
Yes. So Juan, we could actually get into a little bit of that, but you sometimes hear of this word XDR.
Mm-hmm.
Every vendor is now using, they're saying you have EPP, then you have EDR, and now you have XDR. What is this XDR all about, and why is SentinelOne's XDR different from the rest?
I want to be very, very, very careful how I say this, but XDR is it's to something that we can equate to in high school. When boys start to meet girls, and girls start to meet boys in high school, well, things happen. And those things, 90% of the people are lying. They say that they've done those things, and the 10% of the people that have actually done it do it really, really, really bad. So it's like teenagers being teenagers. So XDR is something that not everybody knows exactly what it is. And if they say they're doing it really, really, really bad. What XDR for us means is we solve the data problem. What is this data problem? You have a firewall sending data somewhere. You have servers, server event viewer or event logs sending data somewhere. You have every single system within your ecosystem sending data to a SIM somewhere. And the SIM then uses intelligence to respond. But that's half of the problem that exists there. Our definition of XDR means to remove the barriers to data storage, receive all data feeds, and on the SentinelOne management console, analyze all of that event, and in real time say, hey, this is bad. Mr. Firewall, go respond to this. Mr. Endpoint, go respond to this. We correlate data amongst all of the infrastructure, and we do something about it. How is that different from a SIM? A SIM is just a data correlation point, and it sends that burden over to users, administrators, to go out there and have them respond to it. Our implementation or our interpretation of XDR is be able to gather data from any event and in real time respond to it, have the system do the work for you. Going back to one of the earlier slides that I had there, rather than having people running technology, have the technology help the people. So our XDR is automating a lot of that remediation process from anywhere within the network or within the enterprise, regardless of where the user is at.
All right, thank you very much for that. Here's another question from Roshane. Can SentinelOne run alongside existing firewalls, as well as alongside existing traditional and next-gen antivirus?
So the short answer to this is yes. Whether you're running a host-based firewall or whether you're running a network firewall, most everybody is. And we can also run alongside any antivirus engine that they might have there. But I will ask the question, why? Why would you want to run alongside another antivirus? Maybe it's budget reasons, but if you have the budget to run both, then we can sell you additional products that you can increase your security a little bit more. But whatever reason you have to run more than one AV system, we can definitely do that.
All right, that's pretty good. Now, when it comes to the cloud, quite a bit of companies are moving to the cloud. So they're using AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and so forth. What protections do we have for running in the cloud?
That's A cloud system in SentinelOne's perspective is exactly the same as an on-premise system. It doesn't matter to us whether you're running a VM and name your own cloud version, or whether you're running a Kubernetes workload in the cloud. Same agent for us, same level of protection. It's still your data, regardless of where it's at, so we protect it exactly the same way.
All right, great. When it comes to reporting, does the system have executive reports, technical reports and those things as well?
Yes, and then you can build your own as well if you choose to do that.
Okay, so you have standard reports plus reports that you can actually design from the information within the system.
Yeah, that's correct. And we didn't really cover it too much in the demo, but everything that we saw within the GUI is orchestrated and completed via a API call. You don't have to use the SentinelOne GUI to use SentinelOne. If you have the people and the talent and the desire to do it, you can create your own GUI. Just use the APIs to do it. A lot of our integrations that we have with ecosystem partners are actually done through the GUI. So you can use the API, I'm sorry, they're done through the API. You can use the API to gather data. You can use the API to have an endpoint do something as well.
All right, and I guess for most companies, it's really about if I'm to protect my endpoint, you hear about EPP and you hear about EDR. Do you need both?
So do you need both an EPP and an EDR? If you have, depending on the technology, you will always need some sort of EDR. EDR answers the question, how did something happen? But unfortunately, before I say that, EPP means endpoint prevention and protection. EDR is endpoint detection and response.
Yeah.
The goal of EPP is to prevent an event from happening in the first place. But unfortunately, by simply changing the signature of a file, you can bypass any attack. So what now? What do? You change the signature or a 0-day comes through. The only protection you have is to rely on EDR to tell you how something happened. That information that the EDR system generates is then used to generate IOCs, indicators of compromise, IOAs, indicators of an attack, or understand TTPs, tools, tactics, and procedures. Basically gives you information on how something happened. You then take that information, you feed it into the EPP, and the EPP starts to protect you from that point forward. So do you need both? I would recommend both, provided that you can run them on a single agent, and you do run them as an agent versus a sensor. The whole sensor thing just introduces too much latency.
And importantly, if you don't have 100% visibility, there's a very high chance that you can be compromised. What is important is that you have to be able to see. You can't fight what you can't see. So that is very important.
Very correct.
Okay, another question from Marjorie. What are the products that come with SentinelOne and how do we source them? You just get in touch with Info Exchange and we will provide guidance for you. What is the cost of SentinelOne? Same thing, just get in touch with us and we provide that. What is important is what we showed in the MITRE ATT&CK evaluation. When you look at what is required for you to actually protect yourself, if you look at a Symantec, you look at a McAfee, you look at CrowdStrike, you look at Fortinet, look at the different vendors. It's multiple products. The good thing about SentinelOne is just a single product and you're covered. And not only covered, but you have an effective solution in place that will do the job. And that's very important. So if you had money to spend, then, we would say, regardless of whichever vendor you choose, make sure that it provides you with sufficient coverage, visibility, and what we call, active prevention, as well as active remediation. Very important.
Mike had a good question on that.
Yes. So do you support legacy systems such as Windows systems that cannot be patched? And how far back do you go? We can provide that information, but I think it goes back to Windows
XP on the
Windows
workstation
XP.
side,
That's correct.
and Server
Right back to
2003
Windows
and 2008.
Yep.
And Windows Server 2008. That's
Not
correct.
that
And
Mike have
2003.
any of those. Not that Mike have any of those things in his
Mike
network.
doesn't have any of those. None of those. But yes, we provide sufficient coverage across the legacy Windows as well as the newer technologies, whether it be Kubernetes or otherwise. Yeah, asking for a friend. Great. All right. So what is important, Marlon, when it comes to choosing and evaluating your endpoint protection and your endpoint detection and response, what are some of the things that the technical team and customers should be looking at to make that evaluation?
First of all, talking from the commercial perspective also is the ROI, the return of investment you will have with those automated capabilities of the product, right? So as I mentioned before, we will relieve the IT team from the heavy load work from every day. So if you have an autonomous agent that doesn't require or rely on cloud or signatures, it will save you a lot of time. It will provide you what you say, active detection, protection, and then the automated remediation will take off that heavy work of the IT team. So I think that that's very, very important. So you will get security and you will be more focused on your daily activities.
Great. And I guess what is important as well is that if you have a current solution in place, we can actually install SentinelOne side by side. So you will see right there during your security assessment, you will see exactly what you're missing, and that is important.
Yeah, it is important to mention that we can interoperate with any other security solution you have already in place, or we can augment it or replace it. So either way, because sometimes people come to us and say, hey, I signed for 3 years with an antivirus. Now I don't have budget anymore to buy SentinelOne, right? I'm like, okay, but the antivirus does this and SentinelOne does this. So you have perfectly the foundation of how to justify to acquire or purchase SentinelOne, because antivirus is not going to do what we do.
Absolutely. And the thing is to say to management that security and protection is not a discretionary spend, considering the consequence.
Exactly.
Okay. And we've shown in this presentation that the traditional and even the next gen are missing what the bad guys are throwing at it. So the management can be presented with these things, and usually once they understand what's at stake and what's required, they proceed. Yeah,
that's correct.
Okay. All right. I think there are one or two wrapping up here.
One of the other questions here is, how does it work together? That is the beauty of SentinelOne, in which it is low impact on the system, and what it does, because it is using mostly behavioral AI, then it is actually looking at how does the system or how is the system or processes behaving, and hence what it is monitoring is way beyond what most other systems are monitoring. And what we have found is that whichever antivirus you have on the endpoint, in detect mode, it works quite perfectly to make sure that during that evaluation period, and we would say, guess what? Why spend money twice? So usually it's during your evaluation period where you're saying, how does this thing work? That you would put your existing antivirus solution or endpoint protection solution and install SentinelOne on top to show what your current solution is missing and what SentinelOne can do for you. So that's never usually a long-term solution because that means you're spending money twice, but it is definitely how we go about doing our evaluations as well.
Right. Right.
And I think it is important to mention that we have different challenges that we confront every day, and they are everywhere, all over the world, right? First is we don't have time.
Right.
We have several products, more products every day, and we have more and more alerts coming from those products. And the data increasing is humongous every day. So how do you handle that if you don't have time and you don't have staff sometimes or qualified staff to do this job, right? So you need definitely a solution to these challenges. And SentinelOne is exactly offering that, saving you time, making it easier and doing the job for you.
That's right.
That's exactly what we offer.
That's right.
Very important. Very important. There are questions about integration, and SentinelOne has a whole host of integrations, whether it be with SIEMs, whether it be with cloud systems, whatever it may be. But what is important is that if you have proper email security in place, you have proper internet browsing security in place or internet access security in place, then what you're left with is, how do I protect the crown jewels if something lands on it? Right. Meaning it bypasses my email security, it bypasses my internet-based security. And what is very important about that is how do I protect myself if I have to fight within my own on my own endpoints? And as we have shown, is that it is very important to have visibility, and it is very important to be proactive. If you can't prevent, then you need active remediation. And to do active remediation, you need visibility.
We can summarize this like the threat life cycle is composed by 3 stages: pre-execution, execution, and post-execution. If you are not covered in the whole threat life cycle, you are not protected. So SentinelOne, if you see what Juan has presented and what we have shared here with you, we covered the whole threat life cycle: pre-execution, execution, post-execution. With one single product, one single agent, you can just get rid of different products to protect in the whole threat life cycle.
Definitely. Thanks for that, Marlon. I think that is really we're at the end, and I'd just like to just summarize to say that through Juan's presentation, we actually got to see exactly how it works in real time. And what is important is, if you have a decision to make, do you go with a product that lacks visibility, or do you go with a product that has visibility? Do you go with a product that it can detect, but in order to respond or to remediate, you have to now investigate, you now have to figure out which one is bad, which one is good, and then in that time you may get compromised? Or do you go with a product that provides active remediation? Do you understand implications behind systems that either work when they're online, but they don't work when they're offline? Very important. And when it comes to data exfiltration, do you want a situation where you're catching that after the fact, or do you want to catch it as it happens? So when you're making a decision about what endpoint do I put in next? Those are some of the considerations that you have to take into effect and into consideration, of course. And of course, you have to now figure out, what do I do? And what choice do I make?
Exactly.
David, over to you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to take this time just to, again, thank you, Juan. I know Juan has had to step off. Marlon, a million thanks. And to you, Ondel. And of course, thanks to everybody that joined us. And as I said at the beginning, this is really the one of a series of seminars on security. We've spoken today about securing the endpoint. Okay. What we're going to do next, we have another seminar coming up in 2 weeks, March 17th, same time. And you can actually go to our website, infoexchangeja.com, and click the link that's there to sign up for that seminar. And what we're going to be looking at on that one now is talking about securing mail and your collaboration suite, which is one of the vectors that the bad guys use to deliver their malware onto your endpoint. So please join us on that one. It's around mail and collaboration security. And yeah, for those guys using Office 365, that's you people, including us, because we use it as well. Right, I think that's it. Everyone, again, thanks. I'll turn you back to your day and enjoy.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Info Exchange. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Today's work from anywhere practice is making corporate security a nightmare, as the internet has become a part of the corporate network. Teams are no longer behind the company's firewall, but at home, moving through airports using public Wi-Fi, or in online meetings at coffee shops.
The corporate firewall is no longer the primary defense. The ideal security solution is one that follows the user, so that they and the company's assets are protected wherever they go.